Hello, everybody. Welcome to the art and sculpting of atomic mass games, Marvel Crisis Protocol. So, I'm here with Mr. Josh Cologne.
Hi
Hello, Josh.
everyone.
Hello, everybody. Oh, the man behind everything, the man that's always hidden
Finally reveals himself.
in front of the camera.
That's
So,
weird. I don't like it. Not gonna lie.
we're gonna have fun. We're gonna have fun. So, I'm a creative director of Dallas Kemp with Josh, and we're going to talk about some sculpts and art, and kind of like our philosophy and like what we're looking at, and kind of the direction of the sculpt and the two-dimensional art. So,
Right.
Josh, you have thoughts on this?
So I think a good place to start is, can you tell them a little bit about what a creative director does at Atomic Mass Games?
So basically, what the goals are, what my goals is, what my duties are, is to kind of like just funnel everything through, right? And we work as a team, of course, and everybody gets to have input, but somebody has to make the final call. So it's just maintaining that visual aesthetic, and the Crisis Protocol brand is kind of like the goals of what we do as a team together. It starts out with a concept. It's just like a design doc started by Mr. Will Schick, the head of studio and designer of Crisis Protocol, and then we work on a concept. We pick the costume, and like we can pick we pick maybe the boots from this costume, and
Maybe mix and match, right?
mix and match, right? We kind of make our own interpretations to some extent, right? They're not always just direct translations. So, and then we come up with a pose, which is my favorite part. It usually ends up with me standing on a chair in Josh's office, making Josh take a picture of
Taking a
me,
picture of you, yeah.
or stuff like that. Which is always a good time and fun. And then it goes right into sculpting, right? We take the concept, we take the pose, and we work with a sculptor. And I work with a sculptor, and I get the miniature, the sculpt. It's not a miniature yet; it's a sculpt still. We get that sculpt to look the way we want it, to really capture the flavor, right? Because that's the goal of the Crisis Protocol miniatures, is to really capture the flavor, the personality, the not necessarily a, a moment, but like
The
a
essence.
the essence, right?
Right.
Like, got a collection of stuff over here, and Green Goblin's riding his Goblin Rider, right? He's swinging his pumpkin bombs down, right? I got Ultron. He's monologuing, right? So stuff like that, like, and then we get it in the house, and that's when we do our real magic with engineering it and making it into a little plastic miniature for Crisis Protocol. So
Absolutely. And then myself as the art coordinator, I basically work directly with the artist to translate the vision of what we want to see in terms of the card, right? Like we have ideas for team tactic cards and stat cards, and we all sit down together and we talk about how those should look like, and kind of like, again, not necessarily. Well, for team tactic cards, it's important to tell a story, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But we decide what we're trying to do,
yeah,
how it's going to match the rules, but also how it matches the story we're trying to tell. And then I kind of go back and forth. I give the artist notes. The artists do a great job, bring me back art, and then I show it to my creative director and head of studio, Will Schick, and we will have discussions and disagreements. And then we come together and we make something greater than the sum of its parts. And that's how basically the process of doing stat cards and team tactic cards art. So let's start off by talking a little bit about the miniatures, shall
yeah.
we? And talk about some of the difficulties or
Let's
challenges, right,
take a
that
look
we
at some stuff.
face when doing the sculpts, I think one of the most important things that we talk a lot about internally, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dallas, but internally we talk a lot about how, I mean, the simple act of putting the miniature on a base, right? And
Yeah.
attaching it, right? How to get those dynamic poses with, but be able to do it three dimensionality, right? So talk a little bit about that.
Pop one up, Josh.
Hold on, let me get. Sorry, it's hard to run things.
What's the decision to make so many tactical rocks? Aaron, that's an interesting question. I mean, there's a lot of choices that are being made, right? Like you want to tell a story and they're on a battlefield and you can get a more dynamic pose by lifting a leg. You can get a more
Oh, what? 1 second, having a. Can we still hear Dallas? Sorry, I lost Dallas for a second. Yep, sorry, I lost you for a second. Oh, yep, I can hear you now. Right. Oh no. Wait. They should be able to hear you now.
test, test, test. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Classic Gen Con.
What can you hear? Can you hear my voice? So apparently, when you share the image, I go away.
Oh no.
That's what it is.
Hold on, hold on. Technical difficulties.
So, so he showed Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel's an awesome example, right? It's like, you got to remember also like we approach different characters differently. Things like in a core box, I want to keep it simple. I want to keep it, you know, also the core box was us learning plastic. So we wanted her up in the air. You wanted her doing something interesting, right? I just don't want Captain Marvel just standing on the ground,
Right.
cuffs up, right? She's coming up, she's flying up, she's got the energy, she's about to go binary. So you gotta do something, right? Things have to connect to the ground. Um, we talked about Beast. We just showed
Right.
Beast. How do you connect him to the ground, right? We talked about an upside down, like hanging thing, was one of the discussions, and I drew, I don't know, Josh, like I don't know, 3 or 4
Oh
different
my
versions.
God. Yeah, dozens.
Yeah, we draw all kinds of versions of these, but it's like once you start to put things on a base, now you got something connected to a base. You need a nice foundation. It's going up into the air. Now it's going vertically, and then you have a large character like Beast dangling from it, right? You start to increase complexity and stuff like that. So we want cool poses, and it's finding that middle ground between complex and awesome and accessible. So
Right.
we came up with the 40 degree or 35 degree, whatever it is. Um, I guess it's more like 70 degree uh, pylon that he's hanging from. So you get him up in the air. You're showing his acrobatic nature, and but you're not adding a bunch of extra parts flipping upside down.
Right. And that's a big important part of the equation, right? Is part count and sculpting and the
Yeah,
engineering, right?
absolutely, absolutely. We take all that into consideration, and as we learn the material and learn what we can do from a manufacturing standpoint, we're going to push those boundaries, and we're going to dabble, and we're going to develop those ideas deeper and deeper and get more and more proficient with it, right? Just from engineering and sculpting and production, like these are all things that you develop over time, right? So everything you've seen so far was sculpted or being sculpted before anybody even knew the atomic mass games existed. So like these are all lessons we've learned before even getting them into your hands and you providing feedback. Like we're already learning lessons. The studio is very, very much I mean, not just the studio, but the entire atomic mass. We don't, we are always pushing the boundaries and developing ourselves.
And so when we talk about the personality of a miniature, how many versions of a pose will you usually go to before you end up being happy? And who usually typically decides when it's good to go, like go ahead, like green light a pose, basically?
How many? I mean, we've worked on some where it's just like the first pose, right? It's just like one of us knows exactly what this character is. Like typically, it's me, you, and Shik,
Right.
and I make you all come to my desk, or I go wrangle you guys up, and I come up with the list. I'm like, here's the list of the characters, or I mean, this is a list that Shik gave us. Like it's part of our big schedule, but I got my list, and I go, okay, and I just go through them, right? And we're like, okay, so Black Widow. What's the first thing you think of, right? And everybody comes up with, we come up with the ideas, very general, very broad kind of philosophy of the personality, right? I'm trying to think who was just that, like, boom. I mean, I got one standing over here on my desk, but I can't talk about that
I
one.
gotta be careful.
I gotta be careful here. Um, Green Goblin is a good example. We were talking about him earlier. It's like we knew he's on the glider. I know how to make the glider connect to the base, and I knew exactly what the action was, right? But then
Right.
we have who's somebody we went through several iterations with, off the top of your head, where we
Man, that was that's Storm was pretty
Storm.
tough.
We came up with several versions of Storm, right? It's like, so we knew we wanted her in the air. We knew we wanted her the goddess of the storm, the goddess of the weather and stuff like that. So
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? That's the direction like we come up with, and then typically I go back to my desk and I just start drawing, right? And I'll come up with
Right.
two or three or four or a dozen, depending on the character. And then I send it to the group and everybody takes a look. And then I talk to engineers and we talk, well, how does this work? And then we go, well, we can push this more if we do this. Right? And then we develop the concept and we just keep pushing
Right.
until finally we're all happy with it. And then I say, cool, I can sculpt this. That's when it goes to a sculptor.
A friendly troll painter says, "You guys really nailed Daredevil. By the way, the model looks amazing. Thank you." That was another particular challenge, right? Daredevil, particular, right?
Yeah, like we went through a couple of things. Like we looked at like a sideways kick, if I remember correctly. Like we
Mm-hmm.
go through so many in my memory. I'm so far in the future. Like Daredevil was sculpted like because plastic production takes so long. Like our timelines are really really long. Like we did that a long time ago, but I remember like I think we had like a sideways kick. But I really wanted like from a miniature philosophy, what I look for, I like making sure important characters have their chest up, and that's not
And
the
why is that?
huh.
Why is that?
Why is that? I'm not saying there's not unimportant characters, but it's like Iron Man and crunching him up in miniature, right? You're making him look smaller. You take a miniature and you crunch it up. You're making it feel smaller. And I want these characters to feel heroic. So I want that arc reactor showing, right? I want those. I want the head up. I want to be able to see the head. Like so you go into a lot of that. And so with Daredevil, it was like one of those ones like, let's get that acrobatic up and then play with the billy club, right? Right. Do you
That
remember
was a
that?
nice surprise. I did not think you were gonna get the Billy Club to swirl around him like you did. I
Yeah.
kept showing you so many Frank Miller poses, right? And it kind of like as like a challenge, you know. And eventually, you just got really quiet and stopped showing me stuff for like 2 weeks.
Yep.
And then eventually, the print came out, and like I just like cried and died.
It's true. It's literally when you show a picture, my audio goes away. That's that's the worst.
I think I fixed it.
No, they said no audio again.
Oh no. Okay.
We're either getting an image of Dallas or audio, but not both. Um, yeah, it's like you go through iterations, you discover something or you find something, and then it's go to Marco and Evan. Our Marco, fantastic sculptor, sculpted Thanos. Um, Evan has got some cool stuff coming up. They both do the engineering work too, and I'm like, okay, what do you see? Like, how do I make this? Like, how do I make this? Like, what do I need to do here to make it work? But it's like I think Daredevil is definitely one of those ones. Like we went through so many iterations. It's just like, okay, how do you get the personality? It's just like, okay, well, now we focus on the Billy Club, and then we put the church piece under him, right? It's like that.
Right.
How many pieces is the Billy Club line? One. It just connects to his hand. It's just and plugs into his wrist. The Billy Club is all one piece.
It's really, really fantastic. And the same thing with Kingpin, right? That was another surprise. I didn't think you were going to add the Nelson and Murdoch plaque at the feet. That was a total surprise. That made my day.
Yeah, it's having fun and telling the story, and making it, giving some personality, giving some narrative to it, and you can add to that, like maybe put some bricks around it and like really sell it, or it's a miniatures game, so you can do whatever you want, right? So we're just providing a little story and a little starting point for you to tell your narrative.
Right.
And yeah, everybody's appreciative about the Billy Club. Like it's that's like one of those examples of like us learning and definitely developing our skills and what we're able to do with plastic and what the engineers are able to help accomplish, and then what the production is able to do as well.
And so tell me a little bit about the production. I mean, as much as we can, right? The production process and the engineering, right? Like we come up with a pose that we like, but then we have to like tear it apart, right? Like that's
Yeah, you have to measure all up and stuff. It's a very complex procedure and process, and takes a long time, but you cut it up, and and like that's where like another part of my job comes in, is like maintaining the aesthetic through the parting process, and stuff like that. So yeah, I love that. So like that's a great, like the Captain Marvel, and then you showed Storm just now, right? It's just like being able to push and develop that idea. So Captain Marvel's flying, but we didn't quite have the know-how to do certain things. And then you bring in Storm now, right? You just saw Storm. And that's me and the engineers really figuring out how we can do more dynamic stuff, right? So Storm is literally flying. That lightning bolt goes down and is one piece. connects to the rock. It's a nice chunky key, and it connects two parts. It has two connection points behind her to give her that full floating, majestic goddess of the storm effect. So I'm really happy. Like this is what like what's fun. It's like developing and figuring out how to make plastic do what I want it to do, because plastic lets us do that kind of stuff.
Well, remember when you pitched Storm on Lightning? I looked at you like, oh my God, what a madman! Like that's not gonna work. Like Lightning's too thin and it's too. But you did it. I'll tell you that honestly, you figured it out.
And I mean, that's the fun of it. Like that's why I mean that's why we work as a team, right? Is like we're supposed to challenge each other, right? Schick loves challenging me, and I think he was even just like, hey, "You're never gonna be able to do that," and I was like, I think
Watch me.
we can. Like, I think we can. And so you just develop an idea, and then you figure out how to like physically make it work, right? And through the engineering and the production and the plastic, what are the guiding lines that those things need, and then aesthetically developing it around that. So you kind of like
Speaking
start
of
with
that,
art, then you become production, and you add the art back in.
right. Speaking of that, balancing between aesthetic and production. What about this next bad boy here? This was a bit of a challenge, wasn't it? Right here, it's Doctor Strange.
Which one?
Doctor Strange.
Doctor Strange. That I feel like was like kind of our first like real can we do this, right? We went through several Doctor Strange iterations, but you know, it was definitely like you want him floating, you want that like mystical wizard thing going on. But how do you do that with Doctor Strange? Like, do we do swirly smoke? Do we do sparkle stars around his feet to like lift him up? And it was just like, okay, well, what about the ring? And then it's just a lot of like trial and error. We did a bunch of tests. You know, you do a bunch of testing. Um, then you discuss it with the plastics, you know, production, and you figure out what are the tolerances and what needs to happen, and then you figure it out. So it's an interesting process, and I loved it. I can't wait to see where we're going, where we're going to end up, right? Because I'm very focused in the where am I now, and then the futures is going to be more awesome, because I'm always just like yesterday was terrible, let's make it better. Not terrible, but you know what I mean.
So, and this is something that comes up a lot, and it's like actually something I wanted to ask you for a while. Like, sometimes when we're all sort of pitching ideas, you know, you kind of take on the stern fatherly figure role, and like, well, that's just not possible, you know, like that's just not gonna, you know, and you're gonna keep us grounded. But on the other hand, there's some cases where you, again, like with Doctor Strange, right, or Storm, where you're like, okay, you know what, let's go even crazier, right? So is it like a gut feeling because you've been doing this for so long, then you decide when to push and when to sort of be more conservative, or is it just favoritism? You have favorite characters? Like, how
I
much is
don't
that?
have favorite characters. Don't ever blame me. Don't ever accuse me of that.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think it's just gut. I think we all kind of know. Like, I mean, it's just like art. Once we start talking about art here, right? You kind of know like where to push and where not to push, and like you kind of intrinsically kind of can see, or you can see the pitfalls of something before. Schick is in there saying lies. Rude. You can kind of see pitfalls before. So like once you're kind of committed to something, or you're kind of moving in a direction, then you kind of like start seeing like how those past like things affected, and then you just
right.
kind of create right around that. And then sometimes I think sometimes it's just important, right? Like to just really just take a character. Schick does the same thing, right? Schick definitely has moments where he comes in, he's just like, make that bigger. Like, why is this so like this? And you do the same thing, right? We all do it to each other.
Right.
It's just like, make this bigger, make this badder. Marco is always about it. Just boom, boom, boom. So it's great.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm just going to post something here not related at all to you having a favorite character, because God forbid I'd never accuse you of that. But it is true, right? Like sometimes it's just inspiration, right? Like sometimes it's just you come in the right day with the right idea, and you know you just figure out, hey, let's just give it a shot. And we definitely fail, right? Like we definitely try things and fail, and it just doesn't work out, and we just sort of learn from those mistakes and move on, right?
Speaking of a certain canon, which you all told me I was crazy about. Trying to remember exactly what he was talking about. There's too many of these. You're crazy about everything. So Ghost Rider.
Oh, I know what he's talking about. I think I know what he's talking about.
Text it to me. Text it to me.
Yeah.
Ghost Rider, I knew exactly what it was. Like, I don't even think I even came to anybody, right?
Yeah, you're just like, hey, I got this.
It was just like, boop, I drew it. Like, I'm done. This is Ghost Rider. We knew exactly. I mean, it goes through approval, right? Like everybody takes a look at it, and everybody. I guess we did discuss the bike a little bit, but I knew exactly he was on a bike, and like I wanted it. It's just, you know exactly what Ghost Rider is doing. Like, can we fit him on a 60mm base? Was the big question, and I really believed we could, and we were able to. So we got this bike, and we made it. I knew exactly what the bike looked like. I knew exactly what he was doing, and it just, man, that sculpt is awesome.
It came out incredible, and I remember also, you kind of secretly working really hard on the chain too, right? Like you're trying to make sure that the chain worked, but also wasn't difficult to assemble. Am I right?
Yeah, it's making sure that it's developing the skills and developing the techniques and stuff like that. And like, so the chain that's one part. It connects, like the hand is holding it, and the hand is part of this, the part, and you just glue that directly onto the wrist. But so you got to figure out what that line is. So you got to figure out how the sculptor is going to sculpt it to do that. So there's a lot of R&D. I think we're 30 minutes in. We should start moving to art.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh my goodness, art. All right. So, art. When we talk about characters, when we look at characters, we want to make sure that we capture the essence, right? So for the first year, and some of the time before I even came in, our art director, Zoe Robinson, was tasked with assembling the artists and working with them. And she did a really great job of finding artists that understood the characters and worked along with Dallas and Schick to be able to capture those for the stack cards. So here, for example, we have a piece by Carlos Cabrera of infamous Rocket Raccoon, or well, not really raccoon. And I just love this piece so very much, right? Like this captures his personality, his attitude, right? And oftentimes I find, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, Dallas, but oftentimes, like, obviously when we try to get the artist the sculpts beforehand, so they have something to reference, right? And then sometimes if we get the art early enough, I feel like it inspires you or inspires us, right? So, figure out different ways of doing the character, especially in pose and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean, everything kind of feeds together, right? Like the rocket sculpt was done real quick, and we pretty much knew what we were doing. But that art, like that, just like you said, that just screams rocket, right? And that's important to us.
Oh, sorry, I lost him for 1 second, but I can fix it. Well, someone messed with his gun, right? Would you be pleased if someone messed up your gun?
Is it like the old banana tailpipe? Like,
I think there's literally a curly Q at the tip of the gun. That's right. That is very true. And then the same artist also did our favorite, Groot. Let me post him up. It's Carlos Cabrera. And that was another one that when I came in, the miniature just had so much personality, especially the way there was dual, right? The fact that you had Groot's arm going into the base, right, as like a, and then coming out as a root for Rocket to stand on. I mean, that stuff like that, little details like that is like some of my favorite things that we do.
Yeah, tying like once again, it's that telling that story, and if you have a good story, like you know, Marvel Crisis Protocol is all about you telling your narrative, but the sculpt should be when we're sculpting it, it should be this story as well, right? Like because you want to inspire, and they're almost like little art pieces unto themselves. Like is kind of the approach, right? So
Right.
having that little dual Groot and Rocket tied together by the chunk of root, like it's just a fun little nod to keeping them as a team. I love that piece too. It's just that injured side really captures like the first side is like very Groot, and then this is like very Groot about to mess you up.
Right. Well, and that's the thing too, right? When we're working on injured sides, it's important for us to capture their personality, right? Like it's not just enough to be like, okay, this is an injured Captain America, this is an injured Spider-Man. We got to think about how would Spider-Man react to being cornered, right? How does Cap react when he's cornered, right? Groot is obviously about protecting his friends and his allies, and Rocket in particular, right? So it makes sense to put, have him turning his arm into a shield, for example, right?
Yeah.
When you have Rocket, right, he's got to be just really ornery because you blew up his stuff, right? Another one we have here is Hela, right? Let me post this one up here. That's another one that we want to make sure, like, okay, she's injured. What is her personality like when she's injured? And it's, she stays regal and maintains that composure more than anything else, right?
Yeah, I mean, I always say like, when is Peter Parker the best Spider-Man? Right, is when his back is against the wall, right? So capturing that moment in the art on the injured side, like he's up against the wall, he's not making the funny quips anymore, right?
Right.
Right. That's important in the art is like in this, right? There you go. Hela's injured, but she's not desperate, right? Her back's not against the wall. She's still in control, right? Because that's her personality,
Right.
and that's her character. So really focusing on those things, and then like sometimes even like I think you brought up a good point there, Josh, is like on the injured side, that more defensive group, the arms, the shield, right? And like sometimes the rules influence the art. Sometimes the art, like it's they're all coming together to work together.
Right. That's exactly right. Like, so we have a question about some of the cards sometimes don't have artists attributed to them. That's interesting. We're actually sometimes when we find art that makes sense, we will pull from the comics occasionally. So you will see some of our favorite covers and some of our favorite pieces that we love from our comics, and we will use them as team tactic cards. That way we feel that helps sort of connect the game with the comics a little bit more. And then some of those pieces are just really iconic, right? And some of them, or sometimes they also show just incredible scenes that we think really fit the narrative that we're trying to tell, right?
Yeah, I mean sometimes it's just the piece of art really screams what we need, right? So it's very very cool that we can do that, and that's what those unattributed artists are.
So in terms of storytelling, one of the biggest things for us are the team tactic cards, right? And so
These are
whenever
my
we
favorite.
sit down and we talk about team tactic cards, the first thing we almost always go to is, okay, what story are we trying to tell, right? Like occasionally we'll have rules beforehand, but just as many times we don't have rules and we're like, okay, what fits this character, what has happened, what's an iconic moment in the story. Like, for example, we have this amazing piece by Ross Taylor, which is The Price of Failure. In the comics, Black Dwarf, who is awesome, sometimes he loses, right? And
Yeah,
when he loses, his boss Thanos doesn't really take it very well, right? He wanted to capture that moment of him sort of kneeling before the Mad Titan, right, and sort of kind of apologizing and promising to do better. And it's a really simple piece, right? You don't see much of Thanos at all, but it tells you the story that you need to tell, right? Like, and that's something that's really, really important to us.
yeah, working like that. Like I said, that's like my favorite. I love the tactic cards, right? Because we get to. It's all about that story, right? We sit down and we're like, what is the story behind it? And then we like create what does that tactic card look like, to tell that story and to keep that narrative going in the rules, right? Not just the rules, but like working with the rules to tell that narrative. So I love this piece, right? It's just like you can just see the oh boy moment
Like,
on
oh darn.
Black Dwarf's face, and just that clenched fist of Thanos in the foreground, right? It really is evocative, like what the story is.
Right.
Like,
And then sometimes with Team Tactic cards, we get to do what I like to consider to be like comic book cover worthy pieces. This one by Carlos Cabrera, Wakanda Forever, is one of my absolute favorite pieces of all time, art directed by Zoe Robinson. And I mean, this just speaks for itself, right? This is just
yeah,
Shuri and Black Panther going off against some alien threat. I just love this piece so very, very much. And like, I love looking at it and I love staring at it.
I mean, you see this piece of art, you know the name of it before you just know the
A
name of
hundred
it,
percent.
right? And I think that's really important. Is like you see that art and you just say it. You just say Wakanda forever, right? It tells the story and it does exactly what it needs to do, and it's a beautiful piece of art. I love the colors on this, by the way.
Yeah.
That purple yellow background just works so good, and then those bright blue gauntlets on Shuri, just everything about that piece is so awesome.
And then, yeah, we also try to capture moments in time as well, right? With this other piece by the great Scott Cohn, going back to Groot for a second here. We Are Groot. This is another favorite piece of mine. Again, art directed by Zoe, done by Scott Cohn, who's one of our favorite artists. Again, you know what's happening here, right? Like, you know what the situation is, and what we try to strive for before anything else is making you almost be able to kind of guess what the card does even before you read the name, right? Like, if we just showed you the art, you'd have a pretty good idea of like what this might have as an effect in the game.
Yeah, you might not know exactly, but you understand, like, you get the story, right?
Yeah.
And the story drives everything in Marvel Crisis Protocol. So Groot's all healing everybody up. I love Knocked Out Hulk over there. I just love Knocked Out Hulk. He's just all, it's great. Once again, the colors are cool, and
It's just a beautiful piece. And then sometimes we get to have a little bit of fun, right? Like with this piece by Baltimore Rivas, Rocket Boots. It's just like, hey, Rocket Boots, how do we show that at Marvel Crisis Protocol? Could have easily done Star-Lord or Rocket Raccoon, but sometimes, it's not just space people that take rocket boots, right? You can have any hero do it, and this is one of my personal favorite pieces too. I'm not gonna lie to you right now. When I first saw it, I kind of cracked up quite a bit. And we also, I mean, we're not allowed. We don't really do panel work, right? Like these are definitely like single illustrations, but whenever we can capture movement and our moment in time, those are my favorites.
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not panel work, right? So you don't get that through line story. So you have to capture everything on one card. This is like Schick's favorite rules card, just because it's so ridiculous. But Yeah, you have a good point, right? It's like, okay, rocket boots. Okay, we could have done Star Lord, right? We could have done Rocket, right? And just literally done rocket boots.
Right.
But it's more interesting to tell a deeper story. Like, so I think Spider Man just wearing rock. I mean, that piece of art is amazing. He's just like, whoa, right?
I will tell you, like, Shake nailed it in the chat. It's about the humor, and it is. Sometimes we try to have fun. That's such a like lame thing to say, but it's true. We try to have fun and we try to have a good time. And who better than to sort of mess around with in awkward rocket boots and Spider-Man, right?
I mean,
However,
it catches that awkward teenness of Peter Parker,
yeah,
right?
that's definitely gangly 16-year-old Peter. That's not 25-year-old experienced Peter.
Yeah, he's like, oh boy.
But we're also like, so another thing we try to capture with Team Tactic cards, it's both story but also a moment in time. And so we have a couple of upcoming pieces that I think really highlight that, right?
Oh, we're showing some new stuff.
So this one coming up does both of that. This one kind of speaks for itself a little bit. And let's see it, there it is. So this piece was a lot of fun. This is one of my very first pieces to art coordinate. And it does both, right? So it's obviously capturing a moment in time, the original 5 OG X-Men, 1963. Sort of that innocent, the first class, but it's also telling a story in that these are literally framed, right? It's a picture frame, right?
Yep.
These are not the current X-Men. These are not the current X-Men that you're going to see in Marvel Crisis Protocol, right? These are their origins. These are their roots. This is a simpler, more innocent time.
Hey, you never know what the future
They've
is.
come a long way, and it's gotten pretty dark. I'm not gonna lie, and you're gonna see it. But I love this piece so very, very much by Dennis Medry and Dallas. You have anything to say about it?
No, I think that this, knowing what this card is.
Oh yeah, Dallas disappeared. Give me 1 second. But yeah, it one of my absolute favorites, and it was a delight to be able to art direct that one and to be able to work with an artist who kind of understood the characters. Hold on. Look at young Hank McCoy. Look at him. This is before he takes that drink and that concoction and kind of messes himself up a little bit. I love this card a lot, and I also love what it does in game. So I can't wait for you guys to see it. This one is in the Cyclops and Storm box, and yeah, I love it very, very much. So then here's another one that tells a story. This one was one of my absolute favorite ones from a personal standpoint, but also broke my heart. God, I don't even want to show this one, but I'm going to show it anyway.
Do it.
This is called Kick 'em While They're Down. And yeah, this is my boy, my beloved Daredevil. And, listen, Daredevil doesn't have a lot of good days, right? Like, let's be fair here. So this is like a Tuesday for him. And obviously this is Kingpin getting the one up on Daredevil. But it's more than just a physical defeat, right? This is a psychological defeat, right? This is him like basically saying, I have all the money in the world. What are you going to do? But don't worry, guys. Daredevil does come up in the end. Like, it's Daredevil. It's comics. Come on. And yes, Schick says on the chat that he loves his art brief because it hurt me so much. And that's true. It hurt me so much to coordinate this one, but I loved how it ended up. It's by Tyler Walpole, incredible artist, and I love this piece.
My favorite part about this piece is not just the blatant arrogance of the Kingpin. Like, because, I mean, that Kingpin is just arrogant right now.
Mm-hmm. He knows he's won.
But my favorite part is the bandage on Matt Murdock's nose. Because it's already been broke days ago.
Oh, yeah. It's re-broken now.
Yeah. Like he didn't just bandage that just now. Like, that's been there.
Mm-hmm.
He's been beat up. This has been a bad week, right? This isn't like
And we also, I mean, I don't know how much of background I can give, but we did play around with the idea of them being a little bit of blood on the money, but we thought that was too dark, so we pulled back on that a little bit.
too dark, too dark, too dark. It's this tells the exact story you need to tell. He's
Absolutely.
he's busted up, he's broken, and Kingpin's just like, I always win, right? I own this town.
That's true. And again, it's a great piece by Tyler Walpole, who's going to be doing a lot more work for us, and he's amazing. And I love the colors, and it makes me sad, but I love it. Sometimes things that make you sad make you happy. I have one more piece of art to show. And this was one of my favorites. Again, I keep saying that, but it's true. I love like coordinating all these. And this one was done by an amazing artist named Gary Daniels III. And this particular piece presented a very unusual problem for character stack cards in that you're going to see the healthy side and it's going to make sense. But we kind of looked at it and we're like, well, how do we show an injured side for a character that technically can't be injured, right? So I'm just going to show this piece and I'm going to break the internet again.
Do it, come on.
But that's fine. Let's watch it go live. All right, so with this upcoming character, you get all the personality, you get all of the amazing, sort of charm that is Luke Cage. And it's as simple. He doesn't need to do a lot. He's already physically powerful. He's the power man. We don't need a dramatic pose with him. He's just cracking his knuckles, ready to beat you up. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not going to say too much, but we capture that a lot in the miniature as well.
You need to send Mr. Will.
This is kind of a really easy, sort of easy kill for us. It's like, okay, this is what he looks like healthy. What are we going to do with his injured side, right? And so let me show you what we ended up doing, and I'll explain why we did it in a second. I can imagine.
You need to send Will Schick a link to join.
Oh no! I already chatted him. I'm not with all the technical difficulties we're having. I'm not doing that. Like it'll be fine.
Okay, switch sides. Come on, there you go.
So this is injured Luke Cage. So how do you do it? So obviously, yes, we do. The first thing we do is the torn up clothes. It's kind of a staple of the injured side of Marvel Crisis Protocol characters. But if you notice, if you look, his skin is unmarred, right? Because he's got literal unbreakable skin. But what we worked on with the artist, who did, again, Gary Daniels did an incredible job, shout out to Trey, and we went back and forth on, is the pose, right? Is now he's taking things seriously, right? Now he's literally got his dukes up, now he's ready to fight, right? And so the idea is like with the silhouette and with the body language, you should be able to tell, even if we had not torn his clothes up at all, our hope was that you can look at this and look at the art and be like, okay, that's the art for the injured side, right?
Yeah, he's about to unleash. He's ready to go.
I absolutely love this piece, and it's super charming, and the colors. And people are asking, okay, who comes with him? I mean, do we even really need to say? Is that really a thing?
No, Josh.
I don't think.
Okay.
So I think it's time for Dallas to head out. And I'll finish up the stream myself. Thank you so much, Dallas, for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. I got another stream I got to go do. I'm about to join the Aces of Paints over on Gen Con. And we're going to be doing a 1 hour speed paint with Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures with 10 very talented painters. And these are going up for auction. So if you want to, as soon as Josh is done, you should come find that and join in. It's going to be super fun. I'm the MC, and I'm going to pick on a bunch of painters while they try to finish Marvel Crisis Protocol miniatures in an hour. So, bye, guys.
All right, bye, guys. Thank you so much. Bye, Dallas. All right, let me. All right, and it's just me now, huh? So yeah, that is. I don't have much other than that piece. So I don't know if you have any questions or anything else in the last 5 minutes before we wrap up. Um, but otherwise, I hope you guys enjoyed seeing the sort of sneak peek into the process behind the curtain a little bit. Yes, Pagani, I stole the headphones from your desk. I needed them. Thank you. Do we have any questions? I will find the link to which Gen Con stage it is for Aces of Paint, and I will be up on our social media. But that is on Twitch. Yes, I mean, I can't speak too much about rules, but yes, Luke Cage technically does have unbreakable skin, but he can be injured. Everyone can be injured, right? Everyone can be injured. Even the Hulk can be injured. Any other questions about art or anything? I will try to sanitize as best as I can, but I'm only one man, and I have a very busy weekend, so things might get forgotten. So, concept art to miniature is pretty straightforward. This isn't really the panel for that. However, I will say that most of the time the miniature doesn't spend a lot of time as a 2D drawing. It's just a rough pose that gets translated into a render fairly quickly, right? So it's almost like 90% of its life cycle is basically in miniature, 3D render print form. How much back and forth do you have with artists? A lot, actually. We go back and forth. Sometimes it's really easy. Sometimes we just knock it out of the park in just a couple different conversations. But there are some times when, there's something sort of hindering a piece or something isn't quite living up to the vision and isn't being interpreted right. And we can go back and forth sometimes for weeks. But we have a great team of artists, and so the reality is that they're too fast. They really are too fast. They make my job really easily. I've got a legitimate question for you. Are you having a good time this weekend with all the releases and watching the internet go nuts? Well, I will tell you that, and this isn't really art related, but I will tell you that this has been a lot of work for a lot of people here at AMG, and it's been Gen Con Online has been on the docket for a long time. So this has been a labor of love, and it's been pretty exhausting. And we're not done yet. Tomorrow is Saturday. It's kind of like the big day, the big sort of full day for us. But seeing people be excited about the things that we've been working on for a really long time. And seeing things, like from the sculpt to the art to the painting, even the marketing, right, and the teasers, it's been really rewarding. It's been really rewarding, and I can't thank you guys enough for sort of embracing what we do with such enthusiasm. It really does make these sort of long days and nights worth it. So thank you guys so very much. Let's see what else we got. How difficult is it to translate superpowers that don't have good sculpt translation, such as psionics and teleportation? Well, I can't speak too much about teleportation, but psychic powers and psionics, that might not be as hard to translate as you think. Stay tuned for that, though. Can't speak too much on that one. So you're considering how you'll do the clear figs when we go to Storm Fantastic Four. You saw Wasp's wings, right? You never know. But that's pretty much it for me, guys. Thank you guys so very much. Again, apologies for the technical difficulties. It was sort of hard being the man both behind the curtain and on the stream. But I'm glad we got to show you everything we plan on showing you. So thank you guys so much for joining us. You guys are great. We have a bunch of streams for you guys tomorrow. We have a panel to play live coming tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. We have painting flesh tones A couple hours after that, and then in the afternoon we have a special Atomic Mass Transmissions Live. Where we'll be painting up perhaps an X-Men miniature. And it'll be an extra special 2 hour long transmission, and we might even have a couple spoilers in there for you guys as well. So thank you guys so very much. Keep an eye on our social media, especially in the next 15 minutes. And again, thank you guys so much for everything, and we'll talk to you guys soon. All right, thank you.